In this recording, we're going to evaluate sociological arguments relating to the future of the global population growth. So the population has gone from 2 billion in 1925 to 6.7 billion in 2008. Most of the population growth has been in the developing world, as Africa's population tripled between 1960 to 2005, and Asia's population doubled in the same period. By 2050, it's estimated the population will be 9.3 billion, and 90% will be living in developing countries, which is one explanation for the rise of slums. Malthus believes that the population will inevitably outgrow available food as people can reproduce at a geometric rate, but agricultural production can only progress at an arithmetic rate. There will be a moment of crisis at which the number of people outweighs available food, and nature has its own mechanisms to prevent overproduction in any species, as high population leads to famine, disease, and even wars. The only way to prevent such natural checks is to encourage people to exercise moral restraint by marrying later or produce fewer children. Relief efforts such as the welfare state could be counterproductive, as they tackle symptoms, not the cause, by helping to alleviate starvation and allowing the population to grow without concern. However, the problem with Malthus's theory is that it assumes that people consume more than they produce. When we think about resources, we forget that developed nations consume the most, produce the most, manufacture the most, and also export the most to the rest of the world. Also, Malthus ignores scientific progress and argues that the world has a fixed capacity of people, but America's population has doubled since 1950, and its agricultural industry has tripled. This shows that even though the population has increased, there has been a massive improvement and development in their food resources. Dependency argues that there is increasing inequality, and the main problem of population growth is the fact that the ruling class of the world will justify further exploitation of developing nations by arguing there are not enough resources, and so they need cheap workers to work for them. Frank argues that access to land is the reason for dwindling food supplies. For example, in South America, 47% of land is owned by 2% of the population. Land monopolised by TNCs can easily be switched for food production. For example, the increase in food prices in 2011 is one of the reasons for the Arab Spring. Land reform would give people a higher status, lower family size, and redistribute food more equally. The neo-Malthusian Ehrlich developed Malthus's idea in his work The Population Bomb. He argued that the battle to feed humanity was over, as there was too much strain on limited resources of food and energy, which is the cause of famine, malnutrition, poverty, war, desertification, and deforestation. Ehrlich's view can be contrasted with Malthus, as he believes that the way to control the population is through contraception, abortion, sterilisation, and financial incentives to limit family size. However, the problem with neo-Malthusians has been raised by Carnell, who believed that people change so predictions can be very false. Ehrlich's model is flawed, as food production increased faster than population growth because of advances in technology. Also, another problem with neo-Malthusians is that the use of contraception is very controversial. Religious countries like India might shun the use of contraception, as it goes against their beliefs, and abortion is also very controversial. Modernization theorists like Rostow believes that demographics is an internal obstacle to development, as space capacity gets used to feed the population, not to be reinvested in more productive activities. Religions like Islam and Catholicism can be blamed for high birth rates and the lack of education for women. Modernisation theory believes that there are three solutions to reduce population growth. One of these is family planning, such as China's old one-child policy, or Singapore, where parents are rewarded for having less children. The second is through Western aid to help introduce contraception. And the third is education of women, so that they have less children. However, the problem with this is that it's ethnocentric. New barbarism is what modernisation theory developed into. Kaplan believes that the developing world is collapsing into anarchy because of population growth, urbanisation, resource depletion, and tribalism. These factors undermined already weak states and led to instability that could eventually threaten the developed world. However, Richards argues that what appears to be random and anarchaic is in fact rational and can only be understood in the context of globalised modernity. Moreover, high population growth is related to mass reduction in death rates. As Urbistat states, it's not because people started breeding like rabbits, it's that people stopped dying like flies. The first world has better access to healthcare and nutrition, unlike the third world that spends too much paying back debt instead of healthcare. However, even though health has improved, there have been a rise of the disease of consumption, such as overeating and diabetes. So in conclusion, the social view believes that poverty and lack of development are causes of high population growth, not the consequences. The way to improve and alleviate poverty is through the improvement of the situation of women.